I guess I'm just going to come out and say it. Null results in tabletop RPGs are generally bad. I think they're a product of archaic design, and they don't feel good for the players. I've been encountering this somewhat. I'm running a 4th edition campaign for a group of players, some of whom have very limited experience in RPGs. And so they're experiencing D&D for the first time. We did play a short Scum and Villainy campaign, and then when that was over, they wanted to play D&D, like brand name D&D. Just say that they've done it, you know. And I am more than happy to acquiesce, and I made a D&D campaign, and we're going through it. We're still level 1. It's kind of slow going, but what I'm noticing is that people are getting frustrated with missing in a combat. You get to where you need to go, you make your attack, and if you hit, you deal damage, maybe you get additional effects, what have you. If you miss, usually, unless you're using a daily power, usually if you miss, you get nothing. And that feels really bad. And I've been comparing it mentally to other games that I've played, namely Blades in the Dark and its family of games, as well as Powered by the Apocalypse. And I've just been struck with the difference, because in a narrative, like a modern RPG, really, it doesn't have to be narrative. In a modern RPG, a lot of the time, you get something. Something happens when you take an action. This goes as far as like Fabula Ultima, which has actions you can take where you don't even roll. You just do the thing. You've got, in Lancer, lots of stuff does something on a miss. And what it strikes me as a product of, here we go again. It's a product of Dungeons and Dragons and its origins as a war game. In a war game, you're usually rolling a lot of dice. You know, because you have an entire squad of dudes who are all doing something. And so they can't all succeed, because then numbers becomes far too important. But they can't all fail. So you roll lots of dice to sort of determine how many of them succeed on their attacks. Usually, you know, with bows or muskets or in a melee or whatever. However many of them are getting to do the attack get to roll dice. And those who fail just don't do anything. You know, and you let the average of all of these attacks sort of like work out how much the unit accomplishes in a single activation. That's usually how war games go. That's how Warhammer 40K does it. It also is how I imagine, now, granted, I have not read the rules for chainmail, but it's how I imagine chainmail goes as well. So, and I think it's pretty standard for like squad-based war games. But when you focus down onto a single character in an RPG, then you run into issues, because yeah, you're rolling one die for one attack, and if it misses, you do nothing. But that's your whole turn. Like, that's the main thing you're doing on your turn. Like, maybe you get to move a little bit. Maybe you do a little buffing. Maybe you're, you know, throwing out a little, like, minor action heal or what have you. But, like, the main thing you're doing is attacking. That's the highlight of the turn. And if you miss and you do nothing, well, it feels really bad. Especially if you have a table where people are indecisive. Maybe they don't know all their options yet, and so they're kind of going a little bit more slowly. And so your turn's going to come up maybe once every 10 minutes. You're waiting for your turn, and then it comes up and you do nothing, and it feels really bad. My heart goes out to these players. And it occurs to me that I want to own, like, when I write an RPG, I only want to have dice mechanics that have no null result. Something is going to happen. You're going to get something. You're going to accomplish something. To an extent, I'm going to put a little asterisk right here. I have kind of accomplished this in Song and Steel. In Song and Steel, any roll, no roll is going to leave you where you were. Because if that is a possibility, that shouldn't be a roll. You can just bypass the roll. You will succeed eventually. There's no reason to have a dice roll if there's no consequences for failure. So something is always going to change about the situation if you make a dice roll at all. Sometimes you will get what you want. Sometimes you won't get what you want. And sometimes you'll get what you want, but bad things happen. There's a lot of degrees in there. But what I think I want to do going forward, and I'm not going to implement this into Song and Steel. It's too late to do that. Song and Steel is more or less done at this stage. I just need to get it into a publishable state. But I think going forward, any system designs that I have will always give the player something. If you make a roll, your character is going to accomplish something. You're going to move to some degree towards your goal. And, depending on how your roll goes, you might also suffer consequences, or you might need to, pay for your success or for your progress in some way. But you're going to get something, or at least have the option to get something. What I don't want in my game is ever for there to be a moment when a player goes, well, I didn't do it. That sucks. Next. That moment should never happen in my game. I would consider that a failure of game design. And it is endemic in older RPGs or RPGs based on older RPGs. Think about all the times in Pathfinder. Pathfinder 2nd edition is a relatively new game. I think it came out, it's less than 5 years old, I think. I'm pretty sure. And the rework just came out last year. But it is based on D&D, which is sort of steeped in and mired in old game design. And game design that, frankly, we know better by now. People who think about game design, who actually consider game design, and they aren't fully concerned with preserving a brand. So basically not Wizards of the Coast. People who take pride in their game and who think about the consequences of their designs, they know that having null results and having these feel bad moments is no good. Now, sometimes you don't necessarily have a good solution for fixing it. Depending on your design goals, having null results may be compatible with certain design goals. They're not compatible with mine. At no point do I ever want there to be a roll where the result is nothing. It really is helpful if you have a resolution mechanic that is non-binary, because there's a sort of natural instinctive interpretation that success is where things happen, failure is where things don't happen. And I think moving away from this success-failure binary is going to be really helpful for designers and players and GMs in recognizing that a null result is not acceptable. It is not a matter of, did you succeed? It is a matter of, how much did you succeed? So, maybe you didn't succeed enough to get what you want, but you succeeded at least a little bit. So you're going to get something, and maybe bad stuff happens too, to make things, to make the drama more interesting, those are my thoughts on null results in RPGs. I cannot imagine a situation where a null result enhances gameplay at all. It may be the most natural and obvious outcome for a roll, but if that's the case, you probably shouldn't be rolling dice in the first place. I think having failure states at all pushes people in the direction of including null results. And so I think maybe reframing character actions as not success or failure, but as limited success or greater success, I think that might be helpful. So, that's what I'm going to be trying to do with my next project, is having a system where if you try to do something, if the player is pursuing a goal, they spend their action to they spend their moment in the spotlight, even if you don't have like a structured action economy, like, you know, Blades in the Dark doesn't have one. But if you still have like your moment in the spotlight, it's your turn to do a thing. And if you're spending that to pursue a goal, you should get something from that. Being completely shut down never feels good. And at the end of the day, you know, it's a game and we're here to have fun, and it's more fun to not be completely told, yeah, you get nothing from this. You wasted your time. Who's next? You know, that doesn't feel good ever. So, yeah, I'm against null results, just flatly as a blanket statement, as broad a statement as I can possibly make. Null results in RPGs are a bad idea and are a product of archaic design, and we don't need them.